Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel Abeer's Book Reviews, and today I'll be reviewing Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And yes, I am a little sick right now, that is why my voice might be sounding a little heavy. Anyways, talking about the book. This has been out for quite some time and I've only recently gotten to reading it. And the one I have here is also quite an old print, but keeping that aside, let's talk about the contents of the book, which are very interesting. So, the book is basically Robert narrating his life story and how having two father figures affected him and his financial decisions. So, the book basically revolves around Robert's two dads. One was highly educated, he was a PhD from Stanford University, and he was the education officer for the state of Hawaii. And the other dad was a school dropout at the age after the 8th grade, and he went on to become one of the richest men in Hawaii. While the educated dad always had struggles with his bills and his taxes. So this book talks about financial freedom and how people need to get out of the rat race. So, what is the rat race exactly? Well, anyone who is working a 9 to 5 is paying their bills, filing out their taxes, is stuck in the rat race because after all your necessities have been paid off, you at the end of the month, people are left with very little money, which is quite sad. Even people who make substantial amounts of income from their regular 9 to 5 are left with very small amounts. And that is what Robert calls the rat race, where people just think that in order to solve all their problems, they just need to earn more money. So if you're earning $100,000 a year and still not able to pay off your house mortgage, people will think, let's just try to earn $150,000 or maybe $200,000 a year, and that way we will be able to just overcome all of our needs and wants. But that is the idea which is challenged in this book. Robert talks about how to get out of the rat race. So there are a few main things. The biggest premise of the book is talking about assets. So he says that the poor and middle class people, they invest their money in liabilities, which will end up harming them financially in the long term, whereas the rich people always invest in assets. So, what does this mean? It means that the poor or middle class people will go out and buy things which they will incur heavy costs for and which will just become a burden for them for the rest of their lives. Whereas the rich people, they will procure items which will make money for them, which will continue to grow and add to their net worth. And there is a quote which has been heavily repeated in this book, and it's called, it goes that poor and middle class people work for money, whereas the rich people have money working for them. And Robert Kiyosaki has made several points illustrating this exact quote, where he gives examples of people he has encountered who just had a lot of wealth, but because they grew up with the mentality of the rat race, they spent it all on they spent it all on liabilities, and now they're heavily in debt. Whereas the people who have the mentality of rich people, they invest the money in assets, and those assets continue to grow and add to their net worth. So this has been heavily talked about in the book. And another point which is equally as emphasized is that rich people pay themselves first. So Robert says that when the normal service class person gets their salary, what do they do? At the beginning of the month, they pay off all their expenses, their living expenses, their bills, and all of that. And if they have money left at the end of the month, they spend it on themselves. Whereas the rich people, at the beginning of the month, they put aside some percent of their income for themselves, which they invest in assets. And the remainder of the money they would use to pay off their bills and taxes. Now, Robert does not tell you to be financially irresponsible. He just says that if you pay yourself first at the beginning of every month, there are two ways where you would be able to successfully pay off everything else. First is you invest in assets which would grow at the end of the month and you would be able to cover all the other costs. And the second way is that you have very little money left in your bank, which motivates you to go out and earn more so that you can actually cover all your living costs. So that is another point which has been heavily talked about in this book. And basically, that's how I would summarize the book. It talks about financial literacy and how people need to get out of the rat race, invest in assets, and pay themselves first. And another point which has been mentioned in the book is that the school education system is not well equipped to train people about money. It was designed to produce workers who would work in cubicles, work in factories. It is not designed to produce people who make their own money, who are not slaves to the government. So that is it for this book review of Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. If you guys enjoyed, make sure you hit the like button. If you're new and haven't already done so, subscribe to the channel to keep receiving more videos like this one. I've been Abeer Rao, and thanks for watching.